This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnisch. With me today, Alliance Defending Freedom's Chelsea Youman. This week, the U.S. Supreme Court leveled the playing field for women's sports. Chelsea, can you tell me what happened?
Yes, this was a sweeping victory. We were very, very excited. Not surprised, but just thankful and grateful for the outcome in this major landmark U.S. Supreme Court case.
Give me a little background on this. Were you defending West Virginia and Idaho?
Yes, the laws came out of West Virginia and Idaho, and we worked in lockstep with their attorneys general, McCuskey and Labrador, and together we formed an alliance and had a bill that really resonated years ago. This is over 10 years in the making from ADF. Their brave legislatures were courageous first movers on this bill, and the bill said schools are allowed to separate sports and private spaces and locker rooms and bathrooms based on biological sex, that boys do not belong in women's restrooms or locker rooms and vice versa. Those laws were challenged, and we appealed all the way up to the Supreme Court. 27 states in lockstep also passed similar laws to protect our most sacred spaces from people of the opposite sex coming in, and those laws were upheld really on two grounds. We were hopeful for at least Title IX to say that Title IX allows for schools to receive funding even if they separate on these ways. Title IX, after all, was passed as an advancement for women, as a way to make an even playing field for women in the school realm. But we also were one on equal protection grounds, and we are very excited to see that under the 14th Amendment, states can say there's a distinction between men and women biologically. Those distinctions are real physically, and that girls can be protected from what our clients underwent, which were things like harassment in the locker room, having to share beds with boys of the opposite sex on sporting events and trips, and of course our athletes who have been displaced. They've lost medals, they've lost championships by the thousands to boys competing in their sports, and all of that ends in those states that protect based on biological sex, and we love to see it. We're very excited for not only the legislative victory, but the incredible legal victory we were able to accomplish with our allies.
It feels like the day that Roe versus Wade was overturned. How is the ADF legal team feeling today?
The ADF legal team has had a very big year at the Supreme Court and is elated by these victories, but mostly because of what it means. I mean, what this means is historically in the United States of America, for the first time, we can really stand by these laws, and we want the 22 states who have not yet passed these types of protections to move. But this goes so much more beyond sports because it allows states to define what a woman is. It stops the erasure of women and girls, and it's more than just competition and allowing them to be victorious, which is really important, actually, to send that message to women and girls that their hard work pays off on the same basis as a male's hard work would pay off. But it goes to show that the Supreme Court and America still believes in truth and in reality, and that there are two biological sexes, and that is good. It's okay that we're distinct but equal under the Equal Protection Clause, and I love that.
It was a witty legal strategy because basically what it does is it puts the power back in the hands of the states, which is exactly what the court ruled with Roe versus Wade. On the issue of abortion, the states have the right, which is why West Virginia and Idaho and these, 25 other states, 27 in total, now have banned transgender athletes in sports. What happens now in the trans sports world? Where do they go from this?
Well, it has been waiting on this for the states that have acted to protect women's sports and locker rooms. So those laws are in effect and have been upheld. And so any of those lower court rulings that have held otherwise, those are nullified essentially by the Supreme Court ruling. And in the 22 states that do not choose to allow for those distinctions in sports, I think there will continue to be, unfortunately, and I hope this isn't true, but there will continue to be challenges for girls. Girls are the ones hurt by this, and I mean physically hurt. There are safety concerns. We've had women and clients, if you look up their testimonies, who've been knocked unconscious, who've been serious injured, lost cognitive function. We've had clients who were sexually harassed in their locker rooms. Unfortunately, those are very real scenarios, and I hope that everyone can take a look around and say it's time to wake up. After a ruling like this, let the grown-ups be the grown-ups in the room. Schools should be in the business of caring for these children instead of indoctrinating them.
The soundbite that the left is playing is from Becky Pepper Jackson, who's that trans athlete at the center of the West Virginia case, who says that he has never been a boy and we're going backwards in history. Can you speak to that?
Yes, well, I think believers should have compassion for anybody struggling. These transgender children are children who are very confused. Some are deeply troubled. Some have trauma and abuse, and they need care, and they need someone to tell them that they are loved and that God doesn't make mistakes, that God made them and they are beautifully and wonderfully made, just like anyone else. And so as a believer, I think we can hold two things at once. We can hold compassion, and we can also hold a line and say that doesn't mean we're going to be willing to jeopardize women's safety and girls' safety in sports, or sacrifice girls and say they no longer exist, they no longer have spaces, they no longer can compete on the same basis as boys. It's walking backwards after decades of progress for women to hold otherwise. And so I think we can hold both of those, compassion for those who are struggling and confused. We want them to get help they need, but we can't be willing to sacrifice half of our population to this ideology that is damaging across the board. It's really damaging for everyone.
What happens next for Alliance Defending Freedom? Are there other arenas to protect girls' sports? What do you guys have on the docket?
We have a lot on the docket. Yes, there are more arenas out there. There are ways to strengthen our laws. I think now it's really important at the federal level to continue to be doing work that Title IX was intended to do, which was to lay the groundwork for women and girls to have an even playing field. So there's definitely work to continue to be done. And in blue states and in arenas where they're pushing this ideology very hard in our school districts, we come in there to litigate and to defend the right of every single woman and girl to say that they matter. Their abilities, their skills, and their gifts are no less just because they're girls and women. They deserve to win, compete, and be safe on the same basis as anyone else.
Learn more at adflegal.org.